Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Kinetik Creators podcast, a podcast for makers who are movers. It's a podcast where we break down and talk about interesting creative happenings, events, and news. I'm Robert.
And I'm Simon. Thanks for joining us today. We have a lot of things to talk about and break down for you, so let's get started.
Guy's probably fought hundreds of thousands of other super beings on the other planets he's destroyed, right? And we have to assume he's won.
I don't care how many demons he's fought and how many hells. He's never fought us. Not us united.
I thought that would be interesting to talk about is this new Justice League trailer that came out during the DC fandom.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was 3 years in the making.
So I haven't seen the original Justice League movie. And Zack Snyder is a director. Did he direct the original?
Yeah, so Zack Snyder directed the whole DC universe. He launched it with Man of Steel 2015, and then followed that up with Batman v Superman, and then started to wrap up that trilogy with Justice League. Personal tragedy kind of kept him away from completing that project. Until the studio brought in Joss Whedon, who, famous for a lot of things, but most notably the Avengers, which are natural rivals for big superhero blockbusters.
Right. So this is, in some way, it sounds like this is like Zack Snyder's closure with the series.
Yeah.
Like his take on a movie he didn't get to make.
That was kind of one of the things that fans have been campaigning about for years. Reports about studio interference and rewrites and reshoots, and so that paired with the mixed reviews and the mixed reaction kind of sparked this hashtag release the Snyder Cut campaign to see what was the original vision. Does this movie even exist? And it wasn't until last year that the director confirmed yep, it exists, but it's beyond my control. And now the year of our Lord 2020 or MMXX if you speak Latin, we got a trailer at the DC fandom for the Snyder Cut, and it's very Zack Snyder. If you're familiar with his work,
right?
And so that's very exciting if you're a fan, because you're now getting what you campaigned for,
right?
And I think that's pretty interesting,
right? So it's going to be 4 hours long.
Yeah, and that was another thing about the director's vision, talking about the grandness of this vision, and it was very noticeable, how choppy and how plot lines kind of fell out, and how some character arcs didn't really land or go anywhere or even start. So
it's like a kind of tying all those ends together.
Yeah.
In a way, or that's the intent anyway. Yeah.
And what's interesting was still a 4-hour movie is not ideal.
Right. Because Avengers Endgame, which was one of the longest theatrical releases, right, was 3.5 hours.
I feel it was just over 3 hours.
Oh, okay.
It was just touching 3 hours.
Just hours. Okay, just over 3 hours. Okay. So this will be much longer, but they're also releasing in 1 hour episodes.
Yeah.
On HBO.
And I think that's what I think is very interesting, with the most relatable thing to this whole DC Warner Brothers project is I don't know how many of our people listening are going to be making a multi-$100 million blockbuster, but the pandemic shut a lot of projects down, and how it pushed back release dates for Wonder Woman, another big project they had high hopes for, how the studio was able to adapt and pivot towards creating new content without having to start completely from scratch.
Right.
And they were able to identify a want that their audience already vocal about.
And as it relates to the pandemic anyway, this is something that is relatively simple in terms of manpower to make happen. Yeah. I would think.
Because a lot of the movie has been shot already, and so it's kind of just filling in things that were cut out, and also a lot of it is a single person in a green screen kind of just being heroic.
Right. And then it's just one or two people in an editing suite for days and days and days. So
making all of that happen.
Right.
I think another, I guess, tangential thing that's interesting with the Warner Brothers HBO Max relationship. Last year, HBO Max, their online streaming platform, they had a lot of success with another DC based property, Watchmen.
Yep.
And so there's not going to be a season 2 of Watchmen. So again, there's that void of like, what are we going to fill here? And so it's just like all of these elements, that 4-hour mega cut that we didn't have any incentive to complete before this this void of, how are we going to tell these stories, or continue like sharing these stories with these famous and very profitable characters.
Right. So you gonna watch it when it comes out?
I might have to.
We'll get those HBO Max
free trials.
There you go. Get in on it. I need to probably see something that's not Aquaman in the Justice League trilogy before. Shazam. I've heard good things about Shazam.
I think I've been one of those people saying good things about Shazam.
Yes, you have. Yeah, you've told me multiple times that it was good. Should we move on to our next topic here?
Yeah, let's bring it.
So this is one that I found. So Unsplash, which is a free stock photo site, the end of August, they released 24 colorized and restored high-resolution versions of images from the March on Washington. I think they were all from photos of the March on Washington or of events surrounding it, I guess. Different shots of like portraits or various shots of people, Martin Luther King, speakers, all that kind of thing. And this is really interesting because when it comes to getting stock photos, especially historical or archival editorial photos, which is what these would fall into, that often costs a lot of money to get those photos, to license like an archival or an editorial photo. So like an editorial being like a news or current events photo that you put in the magazine or newspaper or something like that. Those photos can run hundreds, if not thousands of dollars to license. And the fact that Unsplash, which is their whole model is free images for anyone to use, has done this speaks a lot to wanting to bring attention to this particular topic and doing it for free and kind of removing a very large barrier for a lot of people if they were going to try to use any kinds of these photos, which, a lot of people do use them for various things, via art or, actual like marketing or whatever it might be. And I think that what they've done is they've done a really great job of taking this very pertinent issue in our society right now around racial justice and racial reconciliation. They've said, what can we do as an organization to shed light on this? And by restoring these photos, they worked with the Library of Congress. They worked with a photo historian, actually, or visual historian named Jordan Lloyd. So it's not like they just like sat down in Photoshop and colorized photos. Like it was like a legit process for them to do this. And I think they've lent their voice and lent their support to what is happening in our country right now. And they have now given kind of a free resource to lots of other people to add their own voice into this conversation as well.
Like just the simple fact of colorizing images makes these historical events feel more human.
Right.
And it kind of just, again, what you're just talking about, like how relevant what was going on in the 60s and what's going on currently.
Right.
Being able to just lower that barrier of accessibility, not only just in the financial, but being able to break down the barrier of just the emotional hurdle of like, this was so long ago, or this was just so foreign or just back then.
It's a black and white image, and so because of that, it happened in a different era, happened in a different time period. Yeah. And one of the things too that I find really fascinating is like I'm just looking at the images here on my laptop, and like the attention to detail in the colorization. I don't know if you've ever tried to colorize a black and white photo before, but it is hard. It is intensely hard. And not just because like you may or may not know what color somebody's shirt was, right? But even down to like how the photo was exposed. Like when you expose a photograph, you're literally capturing light at a moment in time. And so because of that, depending on how fast your shutter speed is or your aperture or whatever, it can literally alter the color of certain things, like the sky. Mm-hmm. You know, your sky could be blown out white or it could be blue. And so because of that, they've taken the time and the detail to go in and really kind of try to understand what the photo was or what was happening to colorize the photos accurately. And like you said, bring this new life to something that we kind of think about, well, that was, you know, now it was 60 years ago, but that's not really that long ago in a lot of respects. But because they were black and white photos, they've kind of given this new life to them to say like, oh, wow, this is not necessarily not that long ago, but also like this is still relevant to us today.
I guess speaking of things that are vibrant and happening today.
Oh. So, look. I eat beats, watch me dining, shining. I illuminate the rooms that I'm in, timing. Low-key ain't more crucial than alignment. That's why the flow is intertwined with both and I'm defiling. Every beat
came across a new musical artist, Tobe Nwigwe. I'm just really jazzed about everything he's done. I've seen from him. An artist I follow shared a video of this person I've never seen before. It was an extreme close-up video of him looking directly into the camera and saying, I need you to
arrest the killers.
I need
of Breonna
you to
Taylor.
Arrest the killers of Breonna Taylor. It's like, okay, what is this guy about?
Yeah.
There was just a lot packed into that 44-second clip that put him on my radar. And then 1 week or 2 weeks later, he released another music video that was talking about the same situation, but like with a different perspective, a very soothing but also still somber approach. Just talking about just the desire for people just to, you know, be home safely, and it was very beautiful and very powerful. So I went back to his archive. There are no bad songs, and I think that's
pretty rare for a lot of music artists.
Yes, but not only the music artists, but the frequency that he's putting out content. He committed himself to like releasing a new song and music video every week for a period of time. And I caught on to him towards the tail end of what he called the Pandemic Project. And the song that I think is just super exciting, super encouraging was out of that same Pandemic Project was called Eat. And I can really spend the rest of this podcast breaking down like thematically beat by beat of what's going on in the music video and why transitions were
there it is.
Yeah, it's just great. Like how he starts off again, super close up of him articulating his, you know, his space in the rap game. And how his claim to that artistic space is what basically talking about what makes him unique.
Yeah. And
as I kind of just like went back through his library, that was something that just drew me to his work. Not only just like his messages of social commentary and cultural significance, but he maintained this positivity about everything he's doing.
Yeah.
This specific song and music video is probably like the perfect illustration for it. And if we wanted to boil it down even simpler, there's one line in this song that his wife says when it's her turn to hop on the track. And it's very simple, like, we don't ride the wave, we create it.
Yeah.
Her husband's in the background just like going from like lead singer, lead rapper to like now taking the background and being her hype man. And so everyone's going crazy.
Right.
And I think that's a really not only great illustration of what creativity can look like, just being very supportive about, you know, the people you're working with and not worrying about someone taking away your shine or your moment, but also we don't ride the wave we created. We generate our own momentum. We don't rely and wait for other people to kind of give us handouts to be successful.
Right.
And that just following his journey as an artist and as a series of, as an artist and then as a family of artists, you can really see that evolution going backwards to now. It all started with the idea of why am I making this music? And it's as talented and as well put together it is. It's not really just making music for music's sake or just showing off like, I'm really good at this. It's like, I want to make purpose popular.
Yeah.
It's his mission.
Right.
And so having that mission and then finding the method to share that, taking your background or his background as a athlete and kind of taking that discipline towards his craft, really set him up to be in a position where he was successful, and then how that success inspires other people to help you become even more successful.
Right. Yeah. And it makes me think, like, how do we use our creative voice? That's what it makes me think of. Like, he's choosing to use his like musical creative voice to lift up others, specifically in his family. Yeah. And to talk about, purpose and all this. And it makes me wonder, like, how do we use our creative voice to impact those around us, and like, what do we, how do we do that, and where does that come from in us, and how do we do that better? Looking at Tobe as an example, one thing that has been very consistent is a strong sense of identity. Yeah. That's what it boils down to. Right. He even like down to like wearing the grill and just the Nike socks in all of his music videos, no matter if he's in a suit or African garb, he's wearing socks and flip-flops. Sure. Which is, very true to his Southwest Texas background. But he also incorporates African prints and beats because of his Nigerian parents. And so that, and then bringing along his wife and their best friend, the producer, and having like that kind of trust and intimacy and familiarity in what they're doing kind of keeps them focused on keeping the main thing. Right. Yeah. And you even speaking about identity even makes me think like it's not even just about that, but it's about like confidence in who you are, and being okay with that. And almost like, because like one of the things that I often think of, especially when you were saying like lifting others up, in your work, is that a lot of times creative people will put others down. Yeah. And like, because it boils out of like a insecurity. At least I know I've done that in the past. And it makes me think like, well, no, actually it takes way more, emotional intelligence, quote unquote, and confidence in yourself to then lift others up and not be jealous or not be, worried about what that's going to do to yourself. Yeah. I think a lot of that too is also just like, well, like being confident in who you are, you lose the need to kind of like project an image, right? Which then kind of like becomes like the platform one could use to put people down. It's like, need to maintain this image. Yeah, for sure. Speaking of images, man, you and those segues, dude, like you're just on it with the segues. Dude, murals on spaceships. So Blue Origin's part of the reason why Amazon Prime is able to deliver things so quickly. That has spaceship technology. Blue Origin is a private commercialized space, paid to take an 11-minute trip to basically high five the very edge of space and come back down. Well, so Blue Origin is Jeff Bezos's space company to Elon Musk's SpaceX, and they are basically painting murals on their spaceships that they're sending up. Yeah. And they started this bidding war where you can bid on these murals that are being painted on the side of they're being painted directly on the panels that are on the spaceship. And then auctioning the opportunity to like design the mural yourself, to collaborate with one of the artists to have that designed. Yep. The idea is like you can not only own a piece of, custom art, but a custom art that's been to space and everything that entails, the intensity of like that 3G re-entry process and how that is going to rapidly age and create unique attributes to that mural. Yeah. And everything that comes from like entering and leaving and re-entering the atmosphere. Yeah, it sounds like that they are very confident that the painting is going to survive the process. But they're also saying that basically there are small details within the paintings. I guess it's heat reactive pigment or something in the paint itself is going to be altered by the process, I would assume by friction and heat of leaving and re-entering, since if you're in space there's really nothing to, I guess you have gamma radiation, stuff like that, but I don't know what kinds of impact that would have on paint. But it's just a really kind of cool way for them to I don't know, incorporate some of these paintings and incorporate this creativity into like the scientific side of, or I guess in this case, even commercial side of space travel. I don't know. It's really interesting. Part of me is like, it feels like a gimmick in some ways. But I was also checking out the Instagrams from the artists. One is Jeff Hine and the other is Mark Pugh. They're I guess a portrait artist and a surrealist artist. And their work is pretty great. So I wouldn't be surprised if, obviously the work itself is good, but I'm just wondering like what the intent is and what the purpose is and kind of what that's going to look like when it comes back, because even I think they're a private company. They don't partner with NASA.
Right.
But even still, I think you have to be approved by the U.S. government to even bid and apply to get one of these panels because of the technology that goes into the panel. So that's pretty nuts to think about.
What a time to be alive.
Yeah, for real. But in other space-related news...
you also have the segues.
Yeah. So there is... so back in July, NASA and SpaceX... I guess it was... JPL, I think is what it was. JPL. So NASA and JPL launched the Mars 2020 Perseverance rover mission. So it's the next rover that's going to Mars, from the U.S. anyway, and it was launched in July. And actually, a very popular graphic designer named Tobe Snyder and his design agency, boutique agency, House of Van Schneider, basically designed the logo for it. And it's pretty... I think it's pretty stinking cool looking. Basically, it's a fairly abstract mark, but it's basically a series of what look to be cubes that are connected in the shape of a little rover with a little kind of star, 4-point star over the top right of it. And they designed it to be put on the side of the rocket. And it's, I guess it's in space now, unless it came back to Earth. I don't know if JPL has that or not, but I got to say, like, even just looking at it, like, next to the NASA logo on the rocket, it looks pretty stinking cool. And I'm like, man, where can I buy that and put that on a t-shirt and, put that especially with like the old school NASA worm logo, it would look really good. But again, just that's really, to me, that's a really cool, like, thing that you don't really think about often is like, branding a space mission, but even just like thinking outside the box in terms of like scientific exploration and like making it attractive to the general public. When we do have so much going on here, it's like, it's hard to think about like, why do we need to send a Mars mission? Why do we need to be doing Mars exploration when we have so many things here? Why are we spending money on this? And this, I think having good branding and logo can speak to the need and the purpose of these missions and what they're doing in these. And I think that's just, again, that's the whole purpose of logo design and branding and really kind of creating this excellent image for these things,
It's just really cool just looking on like Van Schneider's website, the breakdown of the logo itself. You have like the red planet, aka Mars, and then you have the the series of cubes that make the Mars rover. But then that star you were talking about, that's planet Earth.
Oh yeah, look at that.
And so just because of like how far away it is, it looks like a star. And I think it's like all of these things combined kind of like speak to like, captivating the imagination. Mm-hmm.
Very cool project. There's going to be a link to it in the show notes and description and all that. So I would highly encourage everyone to go check it out. It's a really unique looking logo too. So I think they obviously did a great job in terms of the visual execution of the typography and the colors and just making something really unique, but still very science and very space. Mm-hmm. It definitely looks like it's something that went to space and belongs with the NASA branding. Yeah.
Definitely out of this world. It was right there.
That's right.
But
creativity and puns.
It's my specialty. But speaking of, exploring adventure, imagination outside of this world, there's a popular little movement going on since this summer about exploring a whole new world, creating your own little world. I'm talking about Animal Crossing.
Okay, so for specifically like my parents who don't know what Animal Crossing is, what is Animal Crossing?
Ooh, Animal Crossing is almost unexciting if you describe it outright. because
It does sound very boring when you think
does.
about it.
It's like glam digital chores. But no, it's an immensely popular Nintendo Switch game that is part of this. It's like the next evolution or the biggest release in this Nintendo franchise. That's basically about creating and designing your own little world, and kind of building relationship with like your little community of little animal creatures and like their different personalities and their different needs, and kind of every day having like this small goal that isn't necessarily about changing the world or rescuing a princess, but also just being very relaxing and very massaging those creative juice muscles that we kind of ignore during the day-to-day, and kind of allows the people to really dive deep into the escapism.
Yeah.
Especially like now where a lot of people like aren't leaving the house as often, you're able to like create a whole island, redesign, change the geography if you want, add whatever kind of plants you want. I have a T-Rex in my digital office.
Nice. Pet T-Rex. That's what everybody wants.
Yes, it's a skeleton, but it's close.
Oh, okay.
We do have. There's just a lot of like the possibilities are
endless.
Yeah.
And to give everybody a context who doesn't know, so the Nintendo Switch sold out globally.
Yes.
When everybody went into lockdown in March, so the Nintendo Switch sold out globally, and it was because Animal Crossing released
in March,
like right before it happened, and so like you could not buy Nintendo Switches, and they were like what $500 on eBay and stuff, and so like it's a very popular.
Yeah,
to say the least.
I felt like I was trying to buy the next Yeezys or Fear of God shoes. Just how
that's a whole nother episode.
Just like how it's just a whole subset that my wife dove into to eventually just find one at Walmart and buy it at retail. But all of that weight and hype is worth it because with the right imagination and putting in the time to find the different furniture items and custom design tiles, you can like create your own Disney World or your own like themed park. Or my wife and I, we've done a few digital dates just by exploring and like being cute together. And so it just speaks to like the power of imagination and how people are able to constantly find new ways to create. With every platform, there's also, marketing. It's going to sneak in, and like
in 2020 of all years,
being
an election year.
Yeah. It's like you heard, and so like you wanted some escapism. Here's some
campaign signs.
Yes, presidential hopeful Joe Biden and his running mate Kamala Harris. They capitalized on just the fact that people are in Animal Crossing and created their own virtual yard signs.
But they're also campaigning to be president of Animal Crossing.
Really?
I believe that's what it is, yeah. So, like, it's not just like, so, like, they're campaigning for president of Animal Crossing and not just, like, campaigning for president. So it's, like, it's become this whole nother, like, meta level.
Oh, that's great.
Of, like, okay, I can't get away from it, and now it's here inside of my video game.
That's funny. I know, like, our metas is like, yo, cool, we lived off the fantasy of going outside and paying off our mortgage. But, yeah, that's just funny.
Yeah. And one of the things, so, like, the article that we found, some Market Watch, we'll link to it, of course, and Trump campaign is, of course, making fun of the Biden campaign for doing this. But it's so interesting to me that, like, you really can't get away from it.
Yeah.
Like, it's all over the place. And it's just so funny. Like, when you said that, when you put the link in there for us to, like, oh, we should talk about this, I was like, no, this is fake. Yeah. Like, there's no way. And it's like, oh, yeah, they did. So they partnered with Animal Crossing, I guess, with Nintendo or whoever makes it. And you can get little campaign signs to put outside your house. People are rightly
memes abound,
memes and Twitter posts and somebody's like, oh God, it's the 2020 version of Pokemon Go to the polls and everything. It's kind of funny. Of course, the internet does what the internet does with these things.
I don't know if it was this article or another article about this topic. They mentioned how there were a lot of like "Make America Great Again" signs already made before.
In Animal Crossing?
Yeah. The Biden campaign is kind of trying to generate momentum, but also generate momentum and kind of like create this digital grassroots energy behind what they're doing.
Absolutely.
But also at the same time, there's pre-existing proof that it's happening without the push of a machine, for lack of a better term.
Right. I mean, I guess the real question, and I'm sure there is any number of political, analysts who could have their opinions about this, but the question in my mind is like, will it be like, does it have any effect? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, and I think it's really interesting specifically because of the pandemic, Biden's not going out on the campaign trail, so he's not doing the in-person rallies and events and things as much. I think he's done a couple of them, but for the most part, he's not doing that. And so he's going to where everybody already is. Right. And it's like, is that going to be effective, or is everybody just gonna be like, oh, it's like a fellow kids kind of meme? It's like, oh, you're just trying to be cool now. We had Neopets. Yeah. It's like, if Obama or, Bush had campaigned in Neopets or whatever, it's kind of the same thing. So.
Yeah. That idea is very interesting. It does, I guess, say a lot about like what presumptions about like the audience itself.
For sure.
I know it's just really cool way to like challenge whatever prejudices or preconceived notions you have about your audience or your quote unquote opponent's audience.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So, second to last thing for today, and this is another digital thing. So Facebook, if you didn't hear, Facebook now has Facebook Campus. So Facebook Campus is special section of your Facebook app. If you're at a college campus, that is basically, it's basically a Facebook for your college. Yeah. Which is really funny because, and again, the internet being the internet took the piss out of Facebook because that's how Facebook started with, basically just being for colleges. And now they've kind of come full circle back to what they were. It's basically just a set of features. It's a college campus specific homepage or news feed, I guess. It is a campus directory, so you can find people and classmates in your college campus. It's basically a college only network. They also have like chat rooms and messenger integrations, I'm sure, for different clubs, activities, dorms, groups. I'm sure the list can go on and on there. But it's really interesting to me because, again, Facebook started for colleges. That's where Mark Zuckerberg originally built it for. And I remember when they finally basically removed the need to have a .edu domain. I guess that was in 2006, 2007, something like that. Okay. And just kind of, it's just interesting that they've kind of come full circle on that, and especially with their track record over the last couple of years, I'm wondering what kinds of things this will end up being. Especially when it comes to tech responsibility. I mean, shoot, right now, TikTok is about to be banned from being sold, tomorrow as of the recording of this podcast. We'll see if that actually happens. Yeah. But, all of the tech issues that are happening with TikTok or Facebook or Instagram, all those things, it makes me wonder, what are the implications beyond this? Because on the surface, it's a really interesting idea. Facebook now has better infrastructure. They have all of the resources they could need to do this really well. But, are there going to be problems with it? And I'm sure there will be. I'm sure that people will find a way to abuse it. And are they set up to counter those things, especially when it does come to colleges where, they have, I don't know, there's a list here of probably 50 colleges that they're going to be at initially. And it's if you put that college on your profile that you're going there, do you have any say of whether or not you're automatically listed? There's a privacy concern for one thing. Do you have any say of whether or not people can just message you without your consent on your just because you're part of this college campus? Oh, yeah. And all sorts of things, that could lead to all sorts of problems in terms of stalking and harassment and all that kind of thing. The other thing that I also think, on a slightly less serious note, is I know our generation, like millennials, we use Facebook still. mostly out of necessity and because we kind of always have.
It's like our own phone book in a way.
Yeah, but younger people don't really, younger kids, you don't really use Facebook. They use Instagram, which is Facebook, but, they're using TikTok and YouTube, Snapchat, etc. I'm wondering if this is potentially a way for Facebook to try to get more users back into the fold, and kind of appeal to younger college kids who probably don't use Facebook because their parents do, and it's kind of lame because of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if this is like a new Coke situation.
Yeah, exactly.
I just think it's interesting that Facebook is kind of solving a problem that were catered specifically towards like the college experience, like Yik Yak and the Whisper app.
Yep.
That were very focused on not necessarily like all of our mutual friends and like just kind of like making as many connections as possible, but really kind of just like creating a digital space for the connections that are more intimate or in our immediate proximity. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's interesting that Facebook has gotten so big that they kind of like rebirthing to cater to that need. I also think it's interesting that what makes Facebook Campus interesting compared to a Yik Yak or a Whisper is like the anonymity isn't there. Mm-hmm. So you're now creating, instead of like being like a bulletin board for funny observations or just
venting or whatever.
Yeah. This is like a place to actually, create connections. And so I'm just interested to see how all of that will kind of unfold and unravel or develop over time.
Yeah. I'd be interested to see if people use it. Mm-hmm.
How long it sticks.
If it sticks, if they continue to use it, if it's something part of something bigger that Facebook is planning to do, be interesting if they try to roll that into Instagram in some way, but it's so if you're not in college, it probably doesn't really apply to you, but you can laugh because Facebook is recreating themselves or reinventing themselves again.
Oh, just on that note, it is an interesting time because of like how either digital learning or the lack of extracurricular activities being being available. Facebook Campus is kind of a way to create those spaces for people to socialize, especially in a new space. These students are in a new space, in a new time in their lives, and it could be potentially lonely, especially
if you're stuck at home.
Yeah,
because you can't even go physically to college. Yeah.
So getting to know some of your classmates or quote unquote classmates better. I guess they're technically still your classmates.
That's right. Yeah. So last thing, this is something that I'm pretty stoked on this because I was stoked
when I saw that you put it out. So
this is, if you haven't heard, so IKEA and Lego have made a partnership, and it's so funny because I'm like stoked about it, and it's really almost kind of boring in what it is, but basically they have made these, I'm going to spell what it's called because I can't pronounce IKEA products for the life of me. It's spelled BYGGLEK. Glick.
I would like to buy a vowel.
Yes, maybe 2 or 3. Anyway, so it's a drawer system that all of the sides, all the interior sides and outsides, I think, are all the Lego pegs. And so basically I had tons of Legos growing up, and I just remember Legos being everywhere, so like Legos are a very difficult thing to clean up for one thing, and nobody ever wants to clean up your toys, and no kid wants to clean up your toys. But what they've done is they've injected this ability to build with the storage. And I think it's really cool because they've kind of injected this idea of play into something that is normally very boring and monotonous, and like nobody wants to do it. But, if you're building your storage, if you're able to incorporate your storage, it makes it easier, of course, on parents. It makes it easier to keep things organized, keep things put away. But it's also fun. And I think, of course, play is the way we kind of get to know our world as children. And I think even adults, we shouldn't lose our sense of play as we learn to explore things and learn what things are. And I think Lego and IKEA have really kind of knocked it out of the park with this partnership to encourage that in their customers' lives.
when you first started talking about it, I wasn't even thinking about the children as much as I was thinking about the children in all of us.
Think about the children, Simon.
I should be. I have one, so I should be. But I wasn't. I do see this as a way for like children to like embrace cleaning up as like just a part of their playtime as opposed to like the end of their playtime.
Yeah.
I also just can see this like as a storage solution for just like adults.
Yeah.
Who want to just maybe tinker around their desk.
Yep.
That is cool. That being able to like tap into that power of play that Lego is so known for.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's their thing, and I think that's one of the things that makes Lego, of course, so universally loved is that no matter what your age, you can find something that you enjoy with Lego, and you can find something that you like to put together. You can find something that's fun, or you just like building and tinkering with things. Like you said, it's like a fidget thing. One of the things that I was thinking, though, that is kind of funny, though, is that there's kind of the meme or the joke about how, if you're a couple and you're going to put something together from IKEA, you're probably not going to make it through because it's so frustrating and hard. And Lego is almost the exact opposite of that. So maybe there's a little bit of that trying to build some of that brand cohesion there and saying like, no, IKEA can be fun too.
Yeah. Like kind of like just the combination of the dueling Scandinavian building.
That's right.
Mega companies.
That's right.
I guess in addition to the dueling ideas of like, IKEA building and like Legos being like Lego literally means less play.
Yep.
But just I really am fascinated by the idea that these storage solutions are kind of like bringing like the children into like the adult spaces and the order that adults like are known for creating is being invited into like the kids space or their environment.
Yeah.
How it's being done in a very collaborative and organic way.
Right.
Rather than a kid space, kids toys, just like ruining the adult space. Right. R.I.P. my living room. But on the other hand, like the funless adult just taking away the joy and the fun.
It's encouraging the adults to play with the kids and cleaning up and everything. And one of the things, like just from a technical perspective, even like you can put Legos together that are made now with the very first Legos. Like that's how crazy their specifications and their production process is. So the fact that they were able to do this to start with, let's be honest, IKEA doesn't have the best track record for being like quality. Their stuff is great, but like, it's not necessarily going to last you forever, but depending on what it is. And so like the fact that they were able to kind of bring these two things together is really cool as well. If you're interested, it's going to be available October 1st. I might be going to IKEA.
It is me. I am interested. Interesting thing in that article you shared was just like how important playtime is to like growth and development, and like as adults we know that being able to play freely has so many benefits to like letting their imagination grow and helping them like develop the skills to be like creative problem solvers that we all need as adults, especially as like the world continues to create like new opportunities for us to be creative problem solvers.
For sure.
What's going on with that?
I don't know, but you had me. I was in it.
Yes. Just like adults know the importance of like creating an environment for children to play freely. And the development of this partnership, Lego did a study this year, and they found that 8 out of the 10 parents admit that messy play makes children feel more free and helps develop their creativity. And that's these are great skills for like not only children to have, but like little adults, little people to have as they become like bigger people. Yet 1 in 2 parents worry about children making a mess, and so it's like the tension between like I know it's good, but I know what I want, or I know what I want to, the world I want to live in. And children also feel the effects of that too. Like they are aware of like their parents cleaning up while they're in the middle of their playtime. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think that speaks even like when it comes to like parents or adults in general. Like I think about this a lot is like I don't have the right numbers, but it basically shows that like lots of people do better at their job when they have more uninterrupted time to just think and explore problems. So, you know, whatever you're doing, if you're doing something creative, if you're doing something that is in a, you know, probably more of a manufacturing profession or whatever, if you have more time, uninterrupted time to really think and explore. And I think one of the things that's really key there is mess it up. You will ultimately be more productive. You will ultimately have a better outcome. And that's how innovation happens. And all of the most innovative companies, you know, tech companies are famous for this and having, you know, places to play and places to mess things up. And I think that's really interesting is that if we just gave ourselves more space to do that when we're able to, because the tension there is that when you are at work, you're measured on hours or productivity or however many you have a metric that you have to hit. Most of us do anyway, whether it be a certain number of hours or a certain number of output, whatever that thing is, you know, we have that metric. And so I think it's just really interesting, especially if you're thinking about, you know, if you make something or if you run a company or whatever, to think about like, how do I encourage employees or myself or my team to have more of this time and relieve some of that pressure so that our ideas can be better, more well-rounded, innovative. And ultimately, I think that even leads to better, you know, more productive, more profitable companies and products. And again, I know that there are studies that have been done, but I don't have any at my fingertips. But yeah,
I think just all of that, you know, especially like, you know, as a adult trying to like, you know, keep the life of the inner child in me, and also, you know, preserving like the life and the imagination of like the actual child living with us in our family, or like my son. That's what we were going to say.
The child that lives with us.
The child that lives. Just being very aware of like how we can embrace like the interruptions sometimes, or creating space where like those interruptions aren't detrimental to our productivity and kind of like helps create a healthy work-life balance.
Absolutely.
Just leaves me with a question of like, how am I incorporating and creating environments where play is allowed? I think that's just a question like that's
everyone should consider.
Yeah.
There's your homework.
There you go.
For next time, to think about how do you create play. And I think it's totally, and I think this is anyone's license if you're listening and you need an excuse to go buy a Lego kit. This is your excuse to do that. This is my excuse to go buy a Lego kit.
Yes, I'm giving you the Simon Says power of approval.
Or go buy any toys you want. If you want to buy Hot Wheels or whatever, that's fine.
Go to the toy section and just be inspired.
That's right.
This was fun. Thanks for joining us this week. If you like what you hear, tell your friends about us. We're not pretentious. We're for the people. So you can join the Kinetik Creators community on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and stay connected to what we have going on and be a part of the conversation by sharing something you think we should talk about. You can also email us at kinetikcreators@gmail.com. That's KINETIK, creators@gmail.com. That's all we have for you this week. Until next time, peace.